I'm Brett.
And I'm Alice.
And we are the prosecutors. Today on the prosecutors, our live Patreon Get Vokl. You had questions, we had answers. Hey everybody, this is Brett and Alice here for another live Get Vokl. You guys who aren't here missed the Plague Doctor mask I had from last year's costume. This year I think it would be something a little bit more kid friendly. I think I'm going to go with the something Star Wars actually.
That sounds great, Brett. So is it like a theme costume throughout the family?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, it's gonna be cute.
Hey,
Arnold, what's up? You didn't go with a costume?
I don't have my costume yet.
That's fine. That's fine. I actually haven't gotten mine either, so it all works out.
I decided tonight that I'm going to make my own costume. Wait, Arnold, I'm going to bounce this off of you. I have no costume, but my son's going to be, he wants to be a fire truck. I made him be a fireman. I'm going to be flames. I'm going to be the fire.
Oh, that's cute. I like it.
Okay. Arnold says yes. Arnold, I'm going to tell everyone that Arnold said it was okay for me to do.
I thought you said you were going to be the siren.
Well, here's the thing. I didn't plan it. And it's really hard to find a siren by Halloween.
That's true.
So I decided to print. I haven't done this yet, so it could be nothing. Hello, Liz. You can weigh in on this vote of whether that's a stupid idea or not.
I think being flames is cool.
Thank you.
Are you going to give like your little boy a super soaker so he can like
no, of course
fire
not.
Out the whole time?
So everything that he has that shoots water, I have not told him that it can hold water. So he runs around shooting air.
Smart. That makes sense.
But enough about my parenting ploys. Hi, everybody.
We got so much to talk about.
We have so much to talk about.
I mean, there's like, we got the Gabby Petito stuff and the Brian Landry stuff and we got all the Halloween episodes, which nobody likes but me, but that's fine. The Murder Alliance. That's how Murder Alliance finished up. There you go, Arnold. Arnold's on top of it. Anyway, well, I'll shut up then. You can go ahead, Arnold.
Okay, so I finished Murder Alliance and started listening to Unjust and Unsolved, and I am very interested in like wrongful convictions, and unfortunately you guys are always kind of the villains and all those. So I'm just actually kind of curious, is there anything in, like, we always talk about changes for the system, but like, what are we going to change? I think Maggie said that on like her first episode or something. And I'm just curious, are there anything that you guys can't believe you can get away with or do? Or do you think it's more of like we need to like get rid of our biases and take like, you know, kind of be more objective as jurors type of thing? Or is it like, is the system on paper fine? It's just the way we act? Or is there like a glaring injustice in the system that you can't believe you can get away with? I guess is my question.
So we were on Bob Ruff's show a couple weeks ago. I don't think it's come out yet. And we talked at length about this. So you should check that out because we talked about this a lot. And I'll give you sort of the 30-second version of what I said there. Oh, longer than 30 seconds, but I don't want to bore everybody. So the first thing I think that I and we say this all the time, the biggest problem with the system is people, right? You know, I think sometimes there's this thought that if we just had the perfect system, everything would work out and there wouldn't be any more injustices. And that is not to say that there aren't things that can be fixed about the system, but I think we have to remember that. And so your point, I actually think is really good. I think now we tend to see, I think jurors actually take their jobs very seriously. You know, we see people acquitted all the time. But I do think we have this sort of feeling in our society that jury duty is kind of like nobody wants to do it and everybody tries to get out of it. And I kind of feel like building that up more as sort of an institution is something you should really want to do and take seriously. I think you're 100% right. I think that would be great. As far as structural changes, one thing I think there should be conviction integrity units in every state. I think they should have actual power. I think that, and they should be funded and well funded, because we can mess with the system. And I'm always interested to hear what people think about ways to change it. But because of the people aspect, there's always going to be mistakes, and there's always going to be people who are unjustly convicted. And having that conviction integrity unit, because, and you see this with Maggie's show and stuff we talk about, if you are convicted by a jury of your peers, unless something went really wrong, and we've got a case coming up where we're going to talk about this, where something did go really wrong, but unless something goes really wrong, it is really hard for the courts to fix these perceived problems. And that is so frustrating for so many people. And I think that's why you have like a conviction integrity unit that's not centered in the courts. It's more like in the executive branch and sort of the governor's, clemency, that kind of thing. They can really take an independent look at it and make sort of an informed decision. I think that would be really valuable. And I know there are people who are going to scoff at that just because there are conviction integrity units in a lot of states and they don't seem like they have any power. But that's why I think they have to have actual power and funding to look into these cases.
I think that was a huge point. I have no idea what I said to Bob Ruff's question. That just shows you how lack of sleep can really wipe your memory. So I don't remember what I said there, but I think what you said, Brett, was really important. People groan and moan and try everything. There are, episodes on 30 Rock and every sitcom about how to get out of jury duty. I know this might sound idealistic, but we say it a lot in our show and we mean it. We are hoping that by kind of having like little civics lessons in each of our cases, we're helping educate a broader, all the things we're teaching about shouldn't just be for lawyers, right? They should actually be things that our society knows and cares about. And when I say our society, I don't just mean America, right? These are common law themes that we took from other countries as well. It matters everywhere because we've thought about this for ages. We thought about it back, Plato brought these things up. And there was a time when our society would, put a premium on having these discussions with children as we grew up in our institutions. But I think a lot of that is lost now. And it's not just the easy gotcha late night show. We don't know anything civics lessons. I don't really care if every kid can memorize all the president's names. Great if they can, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about why we have decided as a society to draw certain bright lines and some gray lines, right? And what our role, every single one of our roles are within the justice system. I think, again, that may sound really idealistic, but that's kind of what we strive to do. And we've heard from all of you guys, and it sounds like people are internalizing those lessons is not the right word because we didn't come up with them, right? We just happened to be in a profession where we had to take a test on it, but really everyone should know about it. So that doesn't exactly answer your question head on, but I think asking that question to begin with is a really important thing that maybe all of us should be thinking about.
And to follow up on what Alice has said, I mean, I've been shocked. I always thought when we did this, we were going to have to be really careful about the legal stuff. That if we spend too much time on the legal stuff, people are going to hate it and they're going to stop listening. And I've been really surprised at how much people have enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And that follows up on something else. People really enjoy jury duty. I know that may sound crazy, but if you talk to people who served on a jury, they tend to say it was a really great experience. They remember everything about the case. They remember all the little details. They remember how they came to the conclusion they came to. And yeah, I mean, I think that would be great. On Mandy's point, I think you would want to have, that's a great question. I think you'd want to have prosecutors and defense attorneys. I would probably go for retired prosecutors and retired public defenders. And I think, having those people because we talk about this, sometimes people say we're biased because we're prosecutors. We are biased, right? Obviously we come at it from a specific perspective. And so having people on both sides who can kind of play off of each other, I think would be the best way to do it. But the great thing is if you have it in 50 different states, different states could try different ways and we can kind of figure out what works best.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll leave on on a funny thing. I got called for jury duty 2 weeks after my 18th birthday and never got called again. So
well,
I got out of it because I was in college, but I've never gotten recalled. I think because I moved for grad school, but
I got called
got me and I couldn't do it, and now I haven't had a chance to do it again. So,
and I didn't get picked.
Brett, I would not.
I moved from Georgia to New Hampshire, and 30 days after I moved to New Hampshire, I got summoned for jury duty in Georgia.
Mm.
I had to
See,
send
Thanks
them
for
do
doing your public duty.
I had to
Yeah,
send
you
them a
didn't have to do
notarized
it.
letter with a copy of my temporary ID to get out of it.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So thanks, Georgia.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
Thanks, Georgia. Those are great questions, Arnold. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
asking.
well, I'm
Yeah,
gonna
we
head
got-
out, but I think last
Okay.
Get Vokl I got on here saying I was like halfway through your podcast, but now I'm all done, and now I have to wait every week, which is unfortunate. But I have Patreon, so I got them ahead of time.
And there will be 2 episodes this week for
nice.
patrons. So yeah.
All right, bye.
Thanks, Arnold. Hey, Liz. Thanks for being
Hi, Liz.
patient.
Hi, no problem. First off, this is my cat, Snickers. Hello.
Hello,
Oh
Snickers.
my god! So
Every now and then.
He looks like a Snickers. He's got kind of.
he
Yeah.
looks so beautiful.
Yeah, we
chocolate
call her
caramel.
Stickers when she's acting ridiculous.
Ah,
That's pretty
I
good.
see.
Yeah.
Hi, Snickers. Welcome to the prosecutors Get Vocal.
So
Yeah,
I
don't
have
give
a
Snickers away.
well, you know, she's the best.
Got a mind of her own, just like
Yeah.
every other cat.
Mhm. I have a lot to say about Ben McDaniels.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
We want to hear all about it.
Yeah. So I was a
Fire
search
away.
and rescue scuba diver for a couple of years when I lived in North Carolina. So I'm originally from North Carolina. I went to school in Georgia, and now I live in New Hampshire. So when I lived in North Carolina, I did search and rescue scuba diving. And I don't want to be one of those people that's like blaming the victim, but it's really hard to have a lot of sympathy for this case because he broke all of the basic safety rules and then he was never seen again. And it's a little bit like you play a really dangerous game, like there's going to be a really dangerous outcome. Like what were you expecting to happen? So I don't love the conspiracy theory that all the people at the dive shop found him somehow, covered it up, got him out of the water with no one noticing somehow, and then disposed of his body somewhere. Like that just it involves too many people. It's way too many moving parts. A lot of it just is full of holes because it wouldn't really serve the dive shop to have like found him and gotten rid of him. Like it would have made way more sense to just like seal up that part of the cave and then walked away from it. So if they found him, it's like, how did they get him out of there with nobody noticing? Because basically the minute he went missing, there was a bunch of people there on scene looking for him. So if they found him, how did they get it past all the people that were looking for him? And then what did they do with all of his stuff? It's really hard to get another human body out of a wetsuit. So I don't imagine that they would have buried him somewhere with all of his equipment because that's really expensive stuff. And it's too valuable to just abandon like that. And it's too dangerous to keep it and it's too dangerous to sell it. So, and a guy like that, if he's basically given up his entire life at this point to go scuba diving full time. So he's not renting the like halfway decent gear from the dive shop up the hill. Like he's probably invested money in good equipment. So dive computers can be up to $2,000 for a really good one. All the like just a wetsuit alone can be like a good one can be $200-$300. Like all of your gear, if you're spending time like that scuba diving, you've put thousands of dollars into your equipment. So for another diver to like go through all the trouble of finding you and then just throw away $4,000 worth of equipment doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But it wouldn't make sense to keep it or to sell it either because it's too identifiable, it's too distinct, and it's a hot commodity. So it doesn't make sense that they would have done that. And then where did they put his body? Like, I feel like we would have found it by now. If they left him in his wetsuit, his body would have taken forever to decompose. So it doesn't.
My understanding in Florida is you just feed everything to alligators and it works out.
I mean,
But that may not actually be true.
I don't know.
Don't demystify that for us because that's how we think everything happens in Florida. Which
Yeah,
is
it's
a
later.
fun theory, but what do you do with his gear?
No,
Well, tell me
that's
this.
really good. That's really, really good insight, especially as someone who's done rescue. So what do you think happened to him and where is his body?
He's down. He's just deep in the cave. He didn't have enough good sense to just not go down there by himself in the first place. He broke through the gate. This is like the rules don't apply to this guy. Basically, he's going to do what he wants, and like nothing can happen to him. So he was reckless enough to go down there by himself. He's lost down there. He went somewhere that he shouldn't have gone. No one that went looking for him. Everyone that went looking for him, I mean, you even said it in the episode, they want to go home that day. So there's going to come a point where they have the good sense to stop and go home. And Ben didn't. he just kept going, because sometimes caves, they'll get really narrow and then they'll open up again. So if you're in, a lot of times you can only get through them in one direction. So there's no backing up and shimmying out the way you came. Like the only way to go is forward. So if you get wedged in like that, you're going to have to make the decision to just keep going and hope that it opens up. And it's
so what do you make of Ed Sorensen saying that he didn't see any signs of him going through those like restrictions towards the end that nobody had gone through before?
I don't know. I mean, it's really dark down there. You got to have a lot of light. It's really easy to get disoriented down there. Everything is going to look the same. And how do you distinguish like scratches on the wall from him from scratches from every other diver? I mean, weren't there other people that went missing in that cave or that died in that
cave? Supposedly, and I mean, this is all secondhand, right? I mean, Ed Sorensen claims he went further than anybody's ever gone before.
Yeah, but how does he know?
Well, my understanding is when he's going into these areas, like he's not seeing any sign that anybody had ever gone through these areas before. So he's like the first one making scratches on the walls or whatever. So there aren't any other scratches from anybody. It's sort of my understanding of what he's saying when he says that. Now, I mean, look,
I don't know.
I think
at some point it all looks the same. The visibility is bad, even with a good light. Like when I did search and rescue diving, we had to do a lot of training just like in pitch blackness, because sometimes you have to go into the river in the middle of the night and there is no visibility. So it's all by hand. It's all like you have flashlights, but I mean, have you seen the videos of the deep water explorers that are deep down in the ocean and it's a spotlight? Like even with a bright light, visibility is not great. So it wouldn't surprise me if he just didn't see something. It's a big cave. There's a lot to explore. So when you're looking up, down, all around, like it's really easy to miss something as small as a scratch on the wall from this tank. Like, and at some point there's going to be a cave or like a passage that he might not have even seen. I mean, Ben McDaniel, like it's hard for me to believe that he went down there and tried to map a cave without a GPS computer. Or actually the fact that he didn't have his map was wrong is kind of leads to the fact that he didn't know what he was doing. So it's really easy to get lost down there. If your flashlight goes out for a minute, you get turned around, up, down, left. It's all the same. Like
I mean,
you're going to find him.
My natural inclination was to go with he's still in the cave. I mean, Alice likes to call us cold water prosecutors all the time. I mean, my inclination is always to go with the less sexy theory. But it was really hard for me to get past, because I've never done this before. Unlike Alice, I'm not very adventurous. So I've never done this before. And so it was just hard for me to get past all the people who've been down there and the experts and my friend who does it, all just saying like, there's no way he's there. It was just really hard for me to say, well, everybody says he's not there and they should know, but
just because they didn't see him doesn't mean he's not there though. I mean, we've done training exercises where we sunk a mannequin and then we never found it. And we're a search and rescue team. So it's not like just because they didn't find him doesn't mean it's not there. It happens all the time. Like we go looking for something and we didn't find it. Sometimes you just didn't find what you're looking for. So
you feel strongly that he's still in that cave somewhere?
I am 100% certain that he's in that cave someday.
Do you think they'll ever find him?
No, not at all. Absolutely not. No chance. No chance. I mean, your human body, if you squeeze it tightly enough, can go through small passages that you would never even imagine you could fit through. So they did like a camera thing where they dropped a camera with a long rope on it, basically, and they ran out of rope, so they couldn't go any farther into the cave. Like I think it would take something like that with a much, much longer rope to find this guy.
Yeah.
Like that's the only way.
Well, if they never find him.
First of all, can I just say Liz is like the most badass person that she does rescue diving. When you were talking about doing like nighttime river dives where you'd have no visibility, I'm like, that's maybe the scariest thing ever.
The thing is when you're reaching around on the ground and you feel something hard and you have to hope and pray that it's a log or a rock and not an alligator.
Well, no, that is incredibly good insight. Like Brett, I mean, it was really hard with the expert diver with what he said, but what you say is Occam's razor, right? Like likely he is in there. But having your insight is so helpful. And that's why we love hearing from you guys. Liz, you just come on the show.
Yeah.
You're already on the show. You just don't know.
Next time we need a rescue diver. What do you? So while you're on here, I'll just we sometimes talk about the whole smiley face killer thing. Do you have an opinion on the smiley face killers and whether or not they exist, or it's a big myth? Not a thing. I don't think it's a thing either. So
No.
glad we're on the same page.
No, that's a smiley face graffiti. Come on. That's 15-year-olds.
I agree.
That sounds much less scary.
Sinister. Yeah.
Yeah, much less sinister. I like that.
No conspiracy theory there.
Thank you, Liz. That's really
Thank you, Liz.
Really
That's
awesome. And you're awesome.
Oh,
yeah,
thanks.
you're awesome. Let us know next time we have a rescue diver. We're gonna reach out to you, so be ready.
Okay.
Harriet,
are we seeing you for the first time?
Harriet, isn't it like 3:00 in the morning over there or something? 4:00 in the morning?
Well, not quite 20 past.
Okay. Well,
20 past 3, but I wasn't sleeping anyway. And
are you kidding me? You're amazing for being on.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's so good to finally see you.
Yeah.
I
wasn't
like
2 months of the show, Harriet was our only listener, so.
Not an exaggeration.
I think Ben McDaniels is in the cave.
You think he's in the cave too? Everybody thinks he's in the cave.
I came in halfway through that discussion you were having with Liz, where she was talking about how sometimes you just don't find people. I think the only thing that gives me a bit of doubt as to whether he is in there is the eels, like when they did eDNA, and it turned out that the eels weren't eating anything, or I'm not sure, but that's the only thing that gives me a bit of pause as to he's in the cave.
Yeah, and Tosh asked about the closed system, and I always wonder how closed the system is. Is it really closed? Is there some sort of underground, underwater flow that we don't know
The cave
about?
hasn't been
Maybe
fully explored, so it's not possible to know that answer.
Yeah. So, maybe who knows, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's one of those cases where we talk about this a lot, where you kind of have to make a fundamental assumption for the mystery to work out. And the fundamental assumption in the Ben McDaniels case is that the cave is finite, and then we essentially know the end of the cave, and then we've gone basically as far as you can go, and there's no sign of a person, so therefore he's not there. But, I mean, that is not entirely accurate. So.
Well, I quite like the theory that he either discovered a new system or he just ineptly mapped the cave and somehow got into a different part of it that maybe hasn't been discovered or mapped yet. I think that's a possibility.
Right, because his maps were supposedly inaccurate, people say, but maybe you're right. Maybe he had just gotten to a part people didn't know about. And I guess people still go to that cave.
The map was accurate.
Yeah. It's funny because in a lot of these caving, I kind of got into a lot of cave. As you guys know, I've been watching Mr. Ballin, and like half of his things are people who die in caves. So it just makes me even more not want to go in a cave. A lot of times, when somebody disappears in a cave or dies in a cave, they just shut the cave down. And no, Arnold, this cave's still open as far as I know. You can still go diving in it, which is kind of surprising, but I guess it's privately owned, so and they're making money off of it. So
I think the other thing that's slightly odd is the fact that when divers did go through those, they said there's no disturbance there.
Yeah, we talked about that with Liz some too. Liz thinks that's probably overstated. So.
No, I'm not either.
Yeah.
Yeah, so silt and dust on the ground can settle really quickly, and it can cover things up. So if he dropped a shovel or a tool down there, it's gonna hit the ground and it's gonna stir up all this dust, and all that dust is gonna settle back down on top of it. So that's another reason that sometimes you don't find things, is because it sinks down really fast, and all of that's soft. So it doesn't take a lot for it to really sink down because there's no vegetation down there. It's just silt. So you would almost.
We lost your mic a little bit. I don't know if it dropped or what. I can barely hear you, but it's okay.
I love that you're knitting at 3 a.m.
She's like the expert knitter. Is it Liz knits? Everybody knits. I need to think of knitting
project right here.
There you go.
Oh my goodness, you guys are all knitting.
I wouldn't even know. Of course, Alice knits.
I have I've been. Is this still a thing? I was darning socks earlier.
Oh wow, yeah. If you've got socks with a hole in them, it's still a thing.
Well, here's a funny thing. It's because we buy socks for diabetics, because they don't like they're not tight and they're really expensive, but
so when
they're really expensive. And so like when there's a hole in them, I don't want to throw them away because they're like some of the most expensive socks you can buy, but they're so comfortable. So I was darning socks right before this all started.
I don't think I ever knew what darning socks was, so that's what it is. Just
I don't know if that's
holes?
the proper term, to be completely honest. I was.
Do you have a special needle for it?
Yes.
It's a darning needle. Yeah.
Wow, this is amazing.
Does everyone?
I swear to goodness, I did come prepared. I do have other crime-related topics to talk about.
Okay, absolutely. Go for it. Hit us up.
So sorry. So while I was fixing my headphones in, Liz, I think you were saying that it wouldn't be necessarily unexpected then to not find any signs of anyone if you were down in one of those caves because of how quickly everything settles.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a really interesting insight. I hadn't heard that anywhere before. So yeah.
Just ruining our theory one step at a time.
Looking for like a metal object, use sonar to find it because you can send a diver down there, and it's all done by touch and feel. So you can send a diver down there, and they just might not, their finger might not, hit it. But that's because
might not touchy feel something. So
yeah, if it's sunk 3 or 4 inches down into the mud, like you need a metal detector or sonar to find it. And in a cave that small, that's a lot of equipment to get in a narrow cave.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but so the Ben McDaniel's case is one of my pet cases. Brett and Alice always cover my pet cases, so I've done a lot of I've listened to a lot of stuff about it, but I'd never heard that detail before about the silt. So yeah, that
you're like the biggest owl fan of them all. I mean, I was glad when we did that. I was like, at least Harriet will keep listening to us because Harriet's a big believer in the owl theory.
Because it was an owl. I feel strongly it was an owl.
And we get messages now all the time from people. Like every time an owl attacks somebody sends us a story, and it happens all the time.
It happens.
Well, yeah, because they're freaking dangerous.
I will say this:
dangerous birds with sharp, talony things on the end of them. That's why it happens all the time.
There you go.
No, I went out
birds with knives. That's all.
Today, and an owl swooped down and like buzzed us, and it's done it before. It happens like not frequently, but this isn't the first time this owl has like buzzed us.
You need to wear a helmet.
If only she'd been wearing a helmet.
I'm just saying, safety first.
Look, if you're gonna be drinking by a pool at night, might as well have a helmet on anyway.
Surrounded by owls.
Surrounded by owls. Well, people to wear a helmet.
Surrounded by pissed off owls.
Yeah.
Because they weren't invited to the.
If I ever start a sports team, it's going to be the Owls. I think the owl is a much more terrifying creature than people give it credit for.
I swear to goodness, like whenever there are multiple, because I'm interested in a lot of wide-ranging different things, and there are so many times where I'm like, oh, what could be a skeptical explanation for this? Owl. It's always owls.
I like it.
It's a solid theory. They're scary birds.
They are scary birds. Well, I'm glad. Look, I was kind of surprised. There were a lot of people who were fans of the owl theory, which surprised me. I just thought everybody would laugh at us, but most people.
Solid theory.
But you know what, Brett? Maybe we just have very nice fans because until tonight, I thought everyone agreed with us on Ben McDaniel as well.
Oh no, good point.
And apparently nobody agrees with us. Everyone's on Team Liz.
Everybody was just like, should we tell them they're completely wrong?
This is awkward. It's really awkward. They got it totally wrong.
Yeah.
I did not know that there's an HBO staircase show coming, Arnold.
Is this like a fictionalized version, Arnold, or is this like another documentary?
Because the other staircase was already pretty thorough.
Yeah, I know.
Is it just about the owl?
Dramatization.
I want to see a backstory on that owl.
Is Nicolas Cage going to play Michael Peterson, or just about an escalator?
Oh, we're
anyway.
I
haven't even been drinking tonight, and this is off the rails. Totally off the rails.
So, yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's been a day. I hope all of you guys have had great days, but it's been a day.
Yeah, Alice has been very busy. Alice, do you want to tell people everything you were doing, or keep that
So
all to yourself?
no, not all to myself, but I was speaking about the Roland Doe case with an actual exorcist, y'all. like a priest who specializes in exorcism. And I'm not gonna lie, I was terrified. I was like, this is everyone. Those of you who may not know, maybe
This
you
was
don't
so
listen to the
serious because they
podcast.
would not let me attend.
They would not let him because he's like, this is his job, right? He is an exorcist. And the whole time I was like, I'm so terrified in general, right? Of the spirits, demons, exorcism. The Roland Doe episode had me freaked out. Like, I came out of the closet recording, and my husband walked by, and I screamed so loudly, I almost woke up the entire house. So that was not my favorite episode, to say the least. That was one of my least favorite episodes because it scared the bejesus out of me.
But to my shame, that's the last episode I listened to. I tend to re-listen to them, and the last one I would listen to was the Roland Doe one because it was.
Well, no, I mean, it's a fascinating case, Harriet. I mean, I know you had kind of pointed us in that direction too. But anyways, he had the most fascinating things to say. Basically, what he said was absolutely everything about the Roland Doe case. Because if you remember, Harriet, you might remember from the episode, we said that the official position of the Catholic Church was that it was not a possession by demons. It was a superhuman event, something like that. Something short of demons, right?
Like technically not demons, but
correct. We're not going to call a spade is what they said. And the priest was like, oh, for sure, that was absolutely demon, like no question about it. He's like, I've seen those exact signs on, like, he's like 100%. I've seen all of those symptoms, manifestations, what you want to call. And he's like, and here's the thing, that falls like 80% out of 100 if 100 was like the worst case scenario. And I was like, you've seen worse? Right? I was like, that sounds pretty bad. And I was like, how do you sleep at night? And he was pretty funny. He said, I sleep great.
Now, are they broadcasting this at some point, Alice? Or is this just like, was this like a private discussion you guys had?
No, I'm sorry, Brett. I didn't realize that first of all, I did not come prepared to the party. I didn't realize that not only was it live, it was like live on YouTube. I was like grossly unprepared. I thought I was just recording my portion virtually and then they were going to do it later because everyone else was in person. I was the only virtual person. So it was hilarious. I literally showed up and there was like an audience and I was like, oh, what do you know? Should have brushed my hair today.
So there probably is a YouTube recording of this somewhere, right?
I will find it for you. You know how I am with technology.
You'll find it and
YouTube
I'll send it to
Live
you,
across the top. I don't even know what YouTube Live is. I kind of know what Facebook Live is. I've never done a Facebook Live, but it says YouTube Live on it. So it was terrifying, y'all. All to say is that Roland Doe episode, at least this Catholic priest was like, oh, for sure. That was absolutely a possession by demons. And it's not the worst case I've seen. And I said, enough said. Thank you.
Wow. Well, that's awesome.
Alora, that's a great question. I didn't ask the question how many Catholic priests specialize in exorcisms, but you have to have the authority of the bishop to even perform exorcisms. So your run-of-the-mill priest at your local like Catholic church can't do exorcisms, is what I've learned.
The number went up quite drastically, though, not so long ago. Like, I think it's pretty much since The Exorcist came out, the number of qualified exorcists has been on an upward trend.
So one thing I didn't note on that was Bill Blatty, who his wife was there on the panel too. So she was awesome, and she spoke about like the Bill Blatty that I certainly didn't know, and how he came about to hear the story and write about it, and how he did not want to write it. She told this hilarious story. She said, he obviously, we all know the story. He was at Georgetown. He read about it. He heard about it in his like parapsychology class. And he was like, wow, that's an amazing story. Someone should write about it someday. He went about his life and, did amazing things in his career. And then he and his agent were in the unemployment line. And he looked at his agent and he's like, I guess I should write The Exorcist. And that's what happened.
Like, yes, you should.
Yeah. And the rest is history.
been years since I last read The Exorcist.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So.
It took me. I saw the movie, obviously, when I was like 12 or something. But I didn't read the book.
The appropriate age, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. It's a young, impressionable age. I didn't read the book until a few years ago. And then I didn't see The Exorcist 3 until a few years ago as well, which is the best
The Exorcist 3 is a mess.
I like The Exorcist 3. The Exorcist 2 is a mess. The third one's like, pretty good. Got the scene with the nurse. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. That's neither here nor there.
Well, I don't know. I am the one sitting here. I've got like an entire Exorcist box set that has every film that's been made so far of it. So,
wow, that's awesome. Well, one day I'm gonna come over there and we're gonna have a movie watching marathon. Then
I've got a Psycho box set as well. The Psycho sequels are amazing.
I love that. Yeah, the Psycho movies are
Psycho
awesome.
2 is a thing of beauty.
Except for the remake. Remake's not good.
It's not as bad as it could have been, though.
I don't know.
I'm not sure y'all can watch together. No matter put you in separate rooms to watch.
Tell you what, we'll just do Psycho 2 and Psycho 3 because those are both absolutely hilarious and we'll be good on that.
Yeah. I mean, Vince Vaughn is, I love Vince Vaughn, but not as the Psycho.
See, the bit that doesn't get it for me is Anne Hesh. Everybody else is like top tier doing their thing, but Anne Hesh is just not convincing at all. But
that was just a movie, and the shot for shot thing, I don't know, it was weird. I didn't love it. Anyway, well,
in other news, I actually teach the original Psycho. I've taught that recently. It's a good one to teach.
Really? That's awesome.
Yeah. The kids, for some reason, the kids really get on board with it.
What is your main takeaway from the original Psycho?
Like when I'm teaching it, or for personal pleasure?
What's your main sort of thing you want the kids to get when they watch Psycho? Is there a main point?
So we look at. So because we're teaching to the exam, we look at key scenes and we look at a sympathetic or an unsympathetic character. So basically the main takeaway is Norman is disturbed, but he's somewhat sympathetic because X, Y, and Z. And then we do the shower scene, we do the parlor scene, and we do the truth about mother scene, and we look at all of the candlelighting. We look at the lighting and the editing, and it's a good one.
Well, yeah, I bet. Sounds awesome. I'd love to take that class. Any class that involves horror movies would be a great class to take.
Yeah, I'm the cool teacher like that.
I'm sure.
I refuse to teach
horror
Pirates of the
movies
Caribbean
or
on principle.
Shakespeare. It's
I'm teaching Shakespeare next week.
Oh, not that there's anything wrong with Shakespeare. I love Shakespeare. I'm just saying, if I had to choose between Shakespeare and the horror class, I would probably pick the horror class.
That's why you do Macbeth, which is what I'm doing, because it's.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, witches and everything, curses.
Yep.
Yeah, people getting their heads cut off. It's basically, isn't Richard III and Titus Andronicus? I mean, those are the Shakespeare horror trilogy, right? Anyway. Yeah, I'm surprised there's anybody left in here anymore at this point. Alice is like,
you're the one who's keeping this conversation going. Look, I'm just having my own conversation in the chat.
Yeah. Well, anyway, if anybody has any questions or comments about true crime, we can talk about that, or we can just continue to talk about horror. We are like 3 days away.
Do we want to tell them our plans for the rest of the year?
Sure. Why don't you tell
the next year?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, me?
Shoot.
Okay. Well, you guys. So you guys are here, so you get to hear it first. We are gearing up for a really big trial. So
it's gonna be awful.
It's gonna be great, Brett. But ahead of time, we're just gonna give.
We're doing it together, though. It's me.
Come on, Brett. We are doing it together, so it's gonna be really fun. We're literally gonna be able to say, "I'm Brett and I'm Allison. We are the prosecutors.
We represent the government." Yep.
But anyways, that's not our news. So we are gonna be not releasing new episodes the last 2 weeks of December. So hopefully, you guys will be spending time with your families, cats, loved ones anyways, and you won't miss us too much. But we're doing that so that we can kind of we're going to be recording like crazy. So don't worry, you're the only ones we're thinking about. We're abandoning our families to record to get ahead so that you won't have any more gaps come the new year. And then the new year, you know that we've been with Audio Boom this last year, and they've been amazing. We've loved them. But we are going to be joining Podcast One Network January 2022, and we're really excited about it. I think they're going to be able to do things for us that we do not know how to make more people hear about us, and that's just going to be their job to do. And so it's going to be a really good, I think, partnership, and we've already been talking with them a lot and getting to meet them via Zoom meetings and whatnot. So nothing will change for like you guys. Patrons, I can't even say the word. I'm sorry. Patrons are still going to get everything you guys get. You know, we're going to keep doing our sidebars. You're going to get ad free. You're going to get binge watchable episodes as we produce them and all those things. So nothing changes for you guys. But just wanted to let you know that our actual like parent, I guess, is going to be we're actually joining someone for the first time in January. And we have to say thank you guys, because this would not have been possible without y'all. And again, nothing changes for you guys, but nobody knows yet except for you guys.
Yeah, and we specifically told them that we're going to keep doing the Patreon.
We wrote y'all in the contract.
Yeah, we did write you in the contract, because they were like, well, they're the people who are most likely to buy from the advertisers. Like, well, sorry.
I did my little lawyering thing, and I was like, I'm sorry, but we wrote Patreon in there. And we said that you guys all get the exact same things. So nothing changes.
Yeah. So that's exciting. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, as Alice said, for everybody here, it really shouldn't change a whole lot. But we just wanted to share that with you guys. And then, we'll try and make December worth it. It is possible when this trial starts. It could last a couple months. Don't know how much we're going to be able to do other than just releasing episodes over those months. So if there's not a Get Vokl in February,
we might do Get Vokls like in the car on the way to a witness prep.
But we can do it. Yeah, we can do it from like exactly.
It'll be very Blair Witch Project-esque.
We'll still be like in our suits and stuff, and we'll be exhausted, and we'll say crazy things. It'll actually probably be pretty interesting.
It'll be really funny, actually.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's us. That's our news. If anybody else has news they want to share, now's as good a time as any to do so.
I don't really have news, but I want to talk about the Wendigo.
Okay, talk about the Wendigo. Liz is full of stuff.
Yes. Oh, Liz, you've been so patient. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No,
Liz was ready. Let's talk about the Wendigo.
Let's talk about the Wendigo.
Have you seen the Wendigo?
I haven't seen the Wendigo, but I think he's out there somewhere. I spend probably way too much time in the woods, probably more than is healthy. And I found a haint tree like pretty far back out there. And there's not a lot of reasons to carry a haint tree 2 miles into the woods unless there's a Wendigo. So I think there's a Wendigo out there. So I live in the woods. There's a lot of scary things out there. Bears, coyotes, Wendigos, owls.
And you said you're in New Hampshire, right?
New Hampshire, yeah. So I have a lot of things to say about
that's Wendigo territory.
A different day. But yeah, it's Wendigo territory. There's one out there. So I don't think the Wendigo theory is too insane for the last episode. But
I'm all about the Wendigo.
I think the Wendigo might have done it. But I also think that the wolves might have just walked off with the heads, because
there's also that.
I mean, it sounds kind of weird that they would just walk away with the heads, but because like you said, there's not a lot of meat on there, but the brain is almost entirely fat, and fat is a really important part of a carnivore's diet. So
how do you get into the skull though if you're the wolf?
Can I ask another question too? This goes on top of that. This is going to sound a little gross, but do they wait until it's decomposed and so the head just comes off, or they gnaw it off and then
maybe a little of both?
Okay.
It depends on when the wolf finds it. They don't always find it immediately. So I mean, I do a lot of hunting and trapping, so I spend a lot of time in the woods.
Liz is a badass.
Thanks. Like when we shot a deer last year, and you cut all the meat off of it, and then you've got like a pile of bones left over, so you just dump them in the woods, and you put a camera up and just wait and see what comes and takes them. And a lot of times it's coyotes, sometimes it's raccoons, sometimes it's vultures that'll So sometimes they'll find it immediately and they'll drag the whole thing off, and then sometimes they'll wait a week, 2 weeks. I had one sit out there for a month before anything came and touched it. So, and they take weird things sometimes. They just run off with the legs. Sometimes they just take the head. Depends on what they're feeling that
Liz,
day.
Mandy wants to know your view on the Loon Mountain remains in the Maura Murray case. If you have an opinion.
My opinion is that it's way too soon to speculate about the remains because people have been living in New Hampshire for a very long time, like thousands of years. So to find a human skull on a mountain in the wilderness is, it happens from time to time. There's a reason the first thing they do is call the state archaeologist. So it happens. A lot of places here are like they're old farms that have been built on top of. So if you're in the woods, you'll see like rock walls just running every which direction. And those used to be property lines one day, but now they're considered natural landmarks. So, it's not too weird to stumble upon an old abandoned cabin or a 200-year-old gravesite in New Hampshire. A lot of people have died in New Hampshire. So it could be her. It's possible, but it's...
So you're saying there's a chance?
I'm saying there's a chance, but it's probably not. I'm saying we should wait and see what the archaeologist says before we...
I think wait and see is a great thing to do. That's the position. I'm so sick of Maura Murray. I'm not even paying attention to it anymore, to be honest with you.
That's not a lie. That is a complete lie.
That is not a lie. That is
Sick
not
of
a lie.
Maura Murray. Brett is sick of the Maura Murray community.
Yes,
He is
yes.
not sick of Maura Murray.
I just don't want to get sued. Everybody else is getting sued, so I'm just trying to avoid being sued.
This is a fair point.
Yeah. So anyway, well, Liz, thank you for all of your brilliant observations. You'll have to come again sometime.
I'd love to.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
thank
if they
you,
find
Liz.
that body in the cave, Ben McDaniels, then we'll have to.
They're not going to find Ben, and they're not going to find Maura.
Oh wow! That was a
man,
blow.
she went for the gutter.
Yeah, I mean, goodness gracious.
I could maybe handle one of those, but both.
No. I kind of figured they'd never find Ben, but I was still holding out hope for Maura. But
I mean, maybe the aliens took them both. Who
No,
knows?
Liz, don't walk it back. I was just
Maybe the
about to
aliens took 'em
compliment
both.
you on your decisiveness and the way you speak. I personally love that. As someone who gets told that I'm bossy, I appreciate that. So thank you. Don't walk that
anytime.
back.
I'm happy to take that title from you. I'll be bossy.
Yeah.
Good. Bossy's a good thing.
Awesome.
Well,
All
that was
right.
awesome.
Well,
I'm gonna get my spot.
Thanks, Liz.
Okay.
You are awesome. Thank you so much.
thank you, Liz.
I think
if you
Jason
wanna
wanted to
jump
grab
on,
it. Anyone can grab it. Whoever can
Anybody can grab it.
When I grabbed my spot earlier, it kicked me off. So if it does it to you, come back in, and we're okay with that.
Yeah, and I actually couldn't grab a spot earlier and had to refresh. So if you have to refresh,
Because they knew you were going to play music.
there you go.
I made it. I made it.
Hey!
Oh,
Can you
our
hear me?
favorite Jason.
Can you hear it?
Yes.
Okay, good, cool.
Yeah.
No, I
Favorite.
just wanted to thank you guys for coming to Savannah at the end of the month, like a month ago, basically.
Mhm.
That's where I am, and it was great to see you guys. And so I just I really appreciate that. I love this town. Brett, it's super spooky here right now. There's tons
Not
of haunted
bad.
stuff.
Bet.
So
Maybe
I
next
just
year
want-
I'll come to Savannah for Halloween. We can
Come
hang out.
on, man. Like, yeah, we'll go
Hey,
to all the haunted
Jason,
spots.
since you're on here, why don't you tell
Yeah,
the
tell
folks here,
everybody about your
tell
project.
about what's coming for you.
So I am launching a podcast on Black Friday. It's called Santa May Be a Criminal. SantaMaybe.com, Santa Maybe on most of the socials. And it's about what happens. It's a true crime satire, obviously, about what would happen if Santa was arrested in a small southern town and charged with the many crimes that he could be.
Millions
charged
of
with.
breaking and entering charges.
Lots of breaking and entering, kissing mommy,
Assault.
speeding. Yep.
Lots of
all-
trespassing.
I actually
Speeding,
have
definitely
12. I have 12 charges in a document right now.
speeding. Nice.
Yeah, no, it's a fun project, and you guys have been super supportive of that. We are actually going to
Stalking. That's a good point.
stalk. Yep.
Probably some sort of wiretap. I mean, the fact he's always listening to you.
Yeah,
How's he
exactly.
doing that, right?
Yep. Yeah, we have a lot of Sledbox is one of our sponsors instead of Redbox. It's the movies from the North Pole coming in. Jean-Claude Van Damme is one of the actors in the movies from the North Pole. But anyhow, I just appreciate you guys' support, and again, thank you for coming to Savannah, and I've been a huge fan of you guys since you started, and so I appreciate it. And Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. Does this get us off the naughty list? Because I know you put us on the naughty list there for a little while.
No, you were on the naughty list actually, because when you came to Savannah, when you picked your ornament, you got naughty.
Mm-hmm. I did get naughty.
Alice,
it's true.
Alice
How do you
got nice.
Remember? Wow, Jason, that was really good. Yeah, you guys check out that podcast for sure.
He made a list and he checked it twice.
Well done, Brett. Well done. I thought you were only Halloween, but you were a man of all holidays.
No,
Jason's gonna be awesome. We're gonna be running this promo on our show, so make sure you check that out. Black Friday, right? That's when it comes out.
Black Friday. Yep, Santa
Santa
did it. Right?
Look at that. You know what? Podcasts are all about the swag. We have none, so maybe we need to get you to do our swag.
Oh, and
do you have shirts that say
look,
Santa didn't do it, or? Oh, there you go. Yeah.
You guys, okay, so if we made a bunch of koozies, Prasa koozies. Get it? We give them out for free, but we only do it in person to try and get you guys to come and meet us. So
I meant to bring you one, Alicia, and I forgot. I'm sorry.
Alicia, I'll make Brett bring you another one.
I'll be at the LSU game. Maybe I'll bring it then.
Yeah, Harriet, we'll watch Psycho and bring it to you. But I was so excited about the prosecuzi. I think most people at the convention did not get my pun, but I liked the pun.
Alice loves puns.
Who doesn't?
So JC has an actual serious question, so I guess we should entertain it. Were either of you surprised at anything that happened in the murder of Alliance pod? What do you think, Alice? When you say anything that happened, what do you mean? Like, do you mean the conclusion they came to, or?
I will say this, JC, you can specify your question. I will say nothing surprised me from when they spoke with, I think the big bombshells were that they spoke with David and they spoke with Joe, right? Nothing surprising came out of those conversations for me. It completely, we did not know those had taken place. We knew nothing. We were just up to speed with Murder and Alliance from the time that we recorded, which was even before they were released. And you know what our conclusion is on Murder and Alliance. And the only thing that surprised me was, I think, not quite understanding the depth of Joe's possible mental anguish through all of it. Right. I think he's a very smart guy. I think I didn't quite realize the interplay between him and David because David had been played up as such a nice guy. I was not surprised about his domestic abuse history. Unfortunately, I thought that there's just no one that nice. And I never thought it had to do with the money, because we see a lot of these cases. It's people are like, oh, he wouldn't have killed him for $300. He wouldn't have killed him for child support. He wouldn't have killed him for X, Y, and Z. You don't want someone you hate to have anything. It doesn't matter if it costs you anything. And so I did not buy into the whole argument that he had enough money to pay off all his child support. That meant nothing to me because I thought it had to do probably with his child in custody. So at the end of the day, kind of broad strokes, nothing was surprising to me. And it only affirmed kind of our conclusion.
And I'll say this, and I don't mean this as criticism in any way, because we have so much respect for Maggie and what she does. I was a little surprised that Maggie and the team came to the same, essentially, conclusion that we did, just because I knew how passionate she was about it. I didn't know if she would actually come to that conclusion. And I think, I'll just, proclaim justice or Maggie. If they say that somebody's innocent, I think you have to take them very seriously now. Even if you didn't take them seriously before, like even if you think, oh, these innocent people think everybody's innocent. The fact that they looked at the evidence like they did and came to the conclusion they did, if they tell me, no, this person is innocent, I'm really going to take them seriously because they clearly really thought about this in a really deep way and were willing to come to a conclusion that they did not want to come to. I mean, they absolutely did not want to come to that conclusion, and they did.
And let's put it into perspective. I know all of you guys are very empathetic people, but all of them, Proclaim Justice and Maggie, not only did they put a lot of money into this, this was a year of their lives. I mean, they were flying back and forth to Ohio nonstop. We saw them in the middle of, I think it was after like trip number 2. And I think they ended up going to Ohio, 5 or 6 times. I mean, it was a grueling schedule. Those of you who have worked on long-term projects where you pour everything into, you know what it's like when you spill your coffee on your exam paper or your thesis that you've been working on for months and you lose everything. I mean, that's kind of like what it was for them to reach that conclusion. And so, Maggie was crying on the podcast. I was crying alongside her because I know she went into it thinking she'd get an answer, but she didn't go in to prove that answer. And so I thought that was a very good model for how a lot of people who are doing podcasts, anyone can put podcasts out there, right, these days, how people should go into investigative podcasting or investigative journalism, or even looking at cases without doing the investigative side, how you should go in. You may think you know the answer, but you have to be open-minded. And so that was a definitely walk the walk example.
And I think, it was a warning to all of us who are involved in this. And you see this in all these communities, because these communities spring up around these crimes. And people become so passionate, so emotionally involved in them that a lot of times I think it's really hard for people to see, to just take a look at the evidence and kind of follow where it leads. And it was so interesting because Alice and I, we did it, and we did it based on the trial, and we looked at the transcripts and we looked at that stuff, but as we said, we weren't doing a reinvestigation. I mean, we were looking at the evidence they already had. And we reached this conclusion that David was guilty based on that evidence. And it didn't surprise me at all that once they did more investigation, it just led right back there, because I couldn't see how the investigation was going to lead anywhere else. Once you had the things that you had, unless those people had all said, yeah, the police, they pressured us or whatever, I just didn't, and I didn't think they were going to say that. And I thought I wasn't on, but I watched there was a Murder and Alliance Patreon Get Vokl, kind of like this. And Maggie and the 2 investigators, David and Joe, I think, were on. And they just made some really great points. I don't know how much these were made in the show itself, but one of the points they made was so much of this relied on a police corruption narrative. And they were perfectly willing to accept a police corruption narrative because they see it. But what they also saw was that so many of these people did not live in Alliance. They lived in other places. And those other places, the Alliance police have no reach. And this is like a small police department. It's not like the New York, NYPD or the LAPD or the, Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. This is a very small police department. And the idea that they would be able to intimidate all of these people from all these different communities, it just didn't make any sense. And I don't know. I mean, I thought it was really well done. I'm glad it's gotten a lot of praise it got. There was a New York Times article today that talked about it. And I really hope that, it just continues to launch Maggie even farther. Alice always makes the points more eloquently. Always.
Definitely not true.
I would like to just say too that I think that's like what you guys do so well. First of all, your chemistry is so perfect. That's what drew me to the podcast, was the way that you both interacted with each other. But also that you do provide a little suspense. I think in a lot of true crime podcasting, there's sort of a foregone conclusion in the show. You know what the story is because everybody's doing, a lot of the same stories, which do deserve, the exposure. But the fact that we don't know what you're going to, the conclusion you're going to come to, because you're coming at it from a different perspective, is super appreciated by me. And it's one of the things that I love about what you guys do, because I did not expect you guys to come to the owl theory. I'm not opposed to that, actually. And I do want an Owl Did It t-shirt, Brett. I want to see you. I want to get one. But yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree, because you guys go through the evidence in such a meticulous way, and create an opportunity for us to all think about things in a different way. And it's not every piece of media that's put out there has a lens it's going through. And I do feel like you guys are trying to look at it from an objective standpoint. And I'm a broadcaster in my day trade, and as you all know, news continues to become separated in the way that different companies want things to be framed or whatever. But in my life, I try to work for the viewer, and I try to work for the truth. And so I really appreciate that stance. And so I think that's why, on a personal level, it appeals to me that you guys are literally like looking at facts and laying these things out in a way that are consumable to us and also fun to listen to. And so I sincerely appreciate both of you. And again, I'm so thrilled that you guys came to Savannah, and I got to meet you. I got to meet Alice a second time because I saw her at CrimeCon. And so, no, I just love you both, and thank you for all that you do.
Thanks for those kind words, Jason. That's so nice.
The money will be in the bank account tomorrow.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
That's right.
And with that, I'll sign off if I can figure out how to sign off.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you both.
Can't wait for Santa maybe.
Thank you.
Criminal.
I just want to say one thing about what Jason said, because people talk about like ethics in podcasting and the ethics of true crime and all sort of stuff, and a lot of times I feel like some of that's a little overstated. It's kind of like we're gazing at our navels a little too much. But other times, I think it's dead on. And one way is, like, I actually don't really like these innocence cases because I don't like concluding that someone did it. I know that may sound weird, since we typically do, and we're prosecutors, right? But you have these people who are saying they are innocent, and they're adamant about it. I mean, we did not do Darlie Retier for a long time. We got tons of requests for it all the time. And I just was like, I'm afraid if we do it, we're going to conclude that she's guilty. And this is somebody who's on death row. And I really just don't want to come to the conclusion that somebody's guilty when they're advocating that they're not. But the other side of that I think people forget, I don't think they forget it, but I feel like victims get lost a lot. And I think it's just because they're not here anymore. And so, the person who's saying they're innocent is here. Like, David is here. We hear David's voice. We hear Joe's voice. And I know I got, not as much as Maggie, but hearing David, I got emotionally connected to David. I've never heard Yvonne Lane. I don't know anything about her. I've just seen pictures of her, right? And so I think trying to maintain that balance and make sure that when you're telling these stories, you really are just trying to just tell the truth as you see it. That's the only way you can respect both the person who's claiming they're innocent and the victim.
Yeah,
Alec Baldwin incident. That's an ongoing investigation. Can't comment. I will say this: I think it's really, really tragic and sad, and I don't know who's responsible, but I felt awful for everybody involved, including him. You see all these. I don't want to be all Mr. Judgy or anything, but people went to jokes really fast on that. I'll just say that. Like
somebody died. And we're talking about the Alec Baldwin incident. Right. I felt a young woman who was, reaching the pinnacle of her career at a relatively young age was dead. She has a young son, I think 9 years old, a husband who's now a single dad, and Alec Baldwin, who has children of his own. I can't imagine what he's thinking, having taken someone's mom away from them, and everyone on set, because obviously you can start pointing fingers, and there's going to be, as well as there should be, an investigation into what happened. It was obviously gross negligence. I don't think anyone planted a bullet there hoping that someone would die. People were playing around. This is why rules are in place. And those rules were blurred over time because they were just a bunch of friends probably, shooting out in the desert or something. And that is something you have to carry with you your whole life. Everyone on set, whether they, handled the gun or not. And so I don't know. I think there's just not enough information right now to really comment much on it, except that it is a huge, huge mess.
And it will be a really interesting legal case whenever it happens. I mean, that is going to be a because as you've seen, I mean, if you've heard anybody talk about this, all the different sort of legal theories that are combining together here. And this is a case, you do have someone who's been killed, and there just is a feeling when someone dies that there should be a criminal action against somebody. And
you can already
really
see,
how that
I
happens.
mean, this is not to make light of it, because again, this is someone just lost their life, but you can see this is a classic law school issue spotter question, right? The person who pulled the trigger, whether they meant to pull the trigger or not pull the trigger, was not the person who handled the gun, who put bullets or blanks in there, or who was responsible for checking. You kind of see the chain of causation and how far removed it is from the actual action, and whether it was foreseeable, right? We talk about that a lot in our show, whether what happened was foreseeable. And that's why you're seeing a lot of leaks or articles right now about there were complaints about this person or that person, or about this gun or this scene or this whatever, because they're trying to get at the foreseeability. It's not foreseeable in general, but if it had gone off earlier that morning, is it more or less foreseeable? So that's why you're seeing all those articles. So I have no idea, I have no insight into whether those are actually true facts or not, but you should understand that those articles are coming out and they're very appealing because they're getting at the legal question of foreseeability.
Hello, Tosh.
Hey, Tosh.
Hi.
Welcome. How are you doing?
Welcome.
Yeah. So I just wanted to like jump in because it that case makes me think a lot about when deaths happen in medicine and like medical errors, where you have all of these checkpoints set up to try to prevent harm from coming from the medical system, and sometimes harm happens anyway. Who's held accountable? And often I think it's not the right person or people who are held accountable, and that's just like a whole, I work in medicine, so like I relate everything to that, but so it was just interesting to me kind of from that standpoint.
No, I mean, that is an interesting point. I mean, have you ever seen any kind of criminal liability in a medical situation?
Criminal, no.
Yeah.
I got not. I mean, there is sometimes in the like, I think who was doing a bunch of neurosurgery or have been doing in Texas. May have been held criminally liable, but thankfully, personally, I've never seen it.
And I think part of that probably is usually in medicine, there's sort of a inherent danger, right? I mean, the expectation is if somebody's going in for a surgery and they die, whatever led to that would have to be pretty egregious for you to get to the criminal liability part, and here you got this movie set, which should not be dangerous, right?
Not in the same way.
And it's like I say, it's gonna be really interesting because you see people already saying things that I think are kind of absurd, like, well, Alec Baldwin's the executive producer, so therefore he's ultimately responsible for everything. So if anybody's gonna be charged, it's him. No, that's not how criminal liability works. Civil liability may work that way. He may get sued and be the buck stops with him, and the fact that he also is the one who pulled the trigger, just makes it even worse. But and then there's all these like weird theories of liability and negligence and contributory negligence and all these things that I barely understand because my torts professor didn't actually believe in torts, so he didn't actually teach me anything about torts. But it's going to be crazy. I mean, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be really fascinating from that perspective. And we probably will end up talking about it just because there's so much interest in it. But it's a real tragedy. I mean, and just that picture of him doubled over. I mean, you can just imagine sort of the anguish he's in thinking about what happened. So I don't know.
Well, thank you guys so much for everything.
Anytime. Thank you for popping up.
We love seeing your face.
Yeah. So somebody wanted to ask a question about Limp Bizkit, I think. Fred Durst, why he's not in jail, I don't know. Crimes Against Music, there were many of them. I mean, when they remade, You Don't Know What It's Like to Be the Bad Man, whatever that song is, that was just awful. Anyway.
Well, we have reached the hour. Robert Durst, Brett.
Robert Durst.
I wasn't, JC. I wasn't gonna.
Oh.
I was just gonna let him go with that. but thank you, JC, for pointing it out. I was about.
Well, I
to
don't know
start
anything
saying
about Robert Durst. I know he got convicted and now he has COVID and he's on a ventilator and he's like 99 years old. So,
correct.
you know.
Oh, Gabby. We hadn't talked about Gabby yet. What do we do without you, Liz? So what do you
Liz
guys
is
think?
on fire today.
Who here was surprised that we only see a couple screens, but who here was surprised when they found Brian dead and not alive?
I can't believe you were surprised by that, Alice.
I'm not the only one. Cheryl McCollum was surprised too.
I was.
Cheryl and I talked about this at length, and she thought that he was this. Now this was back in Savannah, so it was a month ago, but she thought that he was too
arrogant,
egotistical, what have you, to kill himself. Now maybe he didn't kill himself because I don't think there's a cause of death yet.
Yeah, that would be my contribution. As it was a thing that could have happened, and it did happen, but we still don't know what happened. And I didn't comment much on the Gabby Petito case because it takes time to work out these things happened. And I think a lot of people jump to a certain conclusion based on what Laundrie's family were like and the background that he came from. And I think if you're in the true crime community, you can't really judge your basement. You can't really make judgments based on what you think you know when the world is a strange place. And yeah.
And we may never know. I mean, you're right. I mean, he was in like a really wild wilderness area. Any number of things could happen. And maybe he was planning on running.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that actually ties back to the discussion we were having about ethics in podcasting. And I think it's not just in podcasting, it's if you do anything to do with true crime, it's always best to, I don't know, just not to jump to conclusions. So.
Yeah, that case went kind of crazy. Dog the Bounty Hunter was on it. It was something. but I mean, I'll say this.
That's another thing where this entire case, I know there's a lot to be said about how much media was on it, and I just have to say this must be devastating for two families. These were young kids, 22 and 23, and they were part of families. You know, they have parents and siblings, and I know it's a national headline, but also I can't even imagine the devastation of these two young lives gone.
Well, what I found really interesting is the Twitter blow up around Gabby's disappearance and the search for Gabby was huge. It was all over Twitter. It was trending. There were lots of people sharing her photograph and sharing the story, and there were lots of updates. But then when they found Brian's body, it was a footnote. It didn't seem to create as nearly as much of the wave as Gabby's disappearance did. And I don't think that's right either, and I don't think that's right for the fact that we still don't know what happened. So I'm very much going to do what you guys do. I'm going to go where the evidence takes me, and at the minute we just don't have enough to say what happened. So,
Harriet, that's right. And Jason makes an incredibly good point that we've said a few times, but he says it so much better. And he said, just because Gabby had a lot of media attention doesn't mean she didn't deserve it. The point isn't that we needed less attention on her or Brian, but that everybody needs more, right? And so I know there's a lot of debate. We don't need to get into that debate at 4 a.m. Your time over there, but I think the fact that they were all found so quickly, relatively, is because of the media attention. And may this be like a case lesson in a lot of these missing person cases, that if we have more attention on them, that is good. That is good for the victims, good for the victims' families to be able to locate them quicker.
And there's no, who knows if they would ever found her body if this had not been this kind of case with this much attention. I mean, maybe they would have, but they certainly wouldn't have found it as fast. They wouldn't not.
I think they found even another body close to hers, right?
Well, they found like a ton.
Yeah, they found a ton of bodies in the search, but one close to her body, not connected, just because he was also missing.
Right.
Well, so obviously you guys have finished with your Halloween season, but maybe for next Halloween season, because I'm sure you're still going to be podcasting, have you ever heard of the missing 411 phenomena?
I have.
Yeah, because that is there are not many skeptical takes on that on the internet, and that is a cluster or several clusters of disappearances that have always really, really interested me. But the fact that the thing that interests me about them is so many people say something weird must have happened, but
Bigfoot.
those people I don't think they really understand what being outdoors is like. And I can say I am not outdoorsy at all. I walk out to get my bus and that's it. But yeah, I think for a lot of people that translates into there has to be something strange with this. Whereas if you do a bit of research, it's just a fact of life that things decompose and things break down and things disappear. And if you get lost in there, you may not ever be found. And there's not necessarily anything unusual in that. It's just the way the natural world works and is. So I think the people who think there was something strange there are a bit removed from that.
I'll say two things about that before we sign off for the night. Number one, Harriet, send us your favorite cases. One thing, and we will cover them. And the second thing that goes along with this is one thing, and they're going more conspiratorial. The finding and not finding of Brian just goes to show what we have said 1,000 times, which is it is really hard to find a body. And it's like, well, the dogs didn't hit on it. Well, yeah, dogs aren't perfect. Dogs miss it. I mean, that happens all the time.
Oh, so, don't get me started on dogs.
Yeah, the fact that you don't necessarily find a body doesn't mean it's not out there. It could be right across from where you're looking and you could just completely miss it. So, well, guys, this has been awesome. So much fun. Thank you so much for joining us. We will do this again sometime soon. You guys are the best. You guys are awesome. You're our favorite people in the world. We love seeing your faces. So show up next time as well. But until then, I'm Brett.
And I'm Alice.
And we are the prosecutors. All right, guys. Love you all.
Thank you guys so much. Thanks for saying
happy Halloween. Yeah, Harriet, you're awesome. Mwah, don't forget it. Okay, guys. Night-night.